I'll get cracking on this. Morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, folks, to today's webinar, which is with Unleashing the Potential of Power BI. Basically, looking to give you an overview of what Power BI is and what it can do for you and your organization to, excuse me, provide you with the, so what benefits are of using Power BI. So let's just get that on screen. There we go. Right. So comprehensive overview of the benefits of Power BI. We're going to run through the feature, what Power BI does, what it can do for you. So let's start with this. Oops. Just get my thing to go. There we are. So we're going to start off with a bit of an introduction to Power BI and overview of what Power BI does, what it can do for you, the various components of the Power BI stack of applications, and who does what with the various parts. Well, go through that. I've got a pre-prepared Power BI reports that I've created just to show you what we're talking about, what Power BI finished report looks like, and show you how we share Power BI reports, the benefits of using Power BI service rather than sorts of things people currently use like Excel and other such reporting things. So sharing it. Take a look at some of the data sources that Power BI can use, how it mashes up data from various different data sources, puts things together, give you a summary of that, show you some worked examples with the actual Power BI query editor itself, and then move on from there into data modeling with Power BI desktop application and how you can then visualize the data. And again, a couple of examples of how it all works. Examination, a quick overview on Power BI licensing models, of how Microsoft licensed this particular product. And then at the end, you can ask a question in the Q&A feature of the webinar whenever you want to. Stuart will be keeping an eye on that for me. I think I've got my hands full just doing a presentation. So Stuart will keep an eye on that for me. Stuart will be, if something comes up in the mid-presentation that's worth interrupting me for, Stuart will interrupt me. Otherwise, when we get to the end, we'll just collate the questions, see what we've got, and run through some of the the answers for these sorts of things. And also, there's there's obviously an awful lot of online information about Power BI, especially with on Microsoft's own website, learn.microsoft.com. So again, with Stuart, if you've got particular questions where can I find information out about X, Y, or Z, we'll pop links in the Q&A and in the chat for you to help out with that. I was just going to say we had a really round number of people. It's saying exactly 200, but now we've got someone else joined. So we'll have that Q&A for any particular things you want to know. Just pop them in the Q&A section. We'll answer questions for you. So moving on from there, introduction-wise, what Power BI is here to enable us to do is to make a journey from raw data. So we start off with raw data, and where we want to get to is data on its own, obviously extremely valuable, and we take great care of our data and we keep it secure and we back it up and it's loved. However, it doesn't tell us anything, not on its own. If I'm going to stare at a table of service tickets that have been raised on the IT help desk, what I actually want to know is which particular service caused the most number of service tickets to be raised in the last month. I can look at that list for an awfully long time, and I'm not going to get that kind of insight. So data is great, but we want to, at the end of our journey, data is the starting point, but the end point of the journey is information. Well, say it's information. Information's great. Insights into how the business or the organization is running, that's great. This is a bit of an axiom for me. This is just a bit of a statement of personal truth, that what Power BI is all about is enabling informed business decision making. That's the key output to the whole thing. I've got a very strong view that I can create the most beautiful and engaging and gorgeous reports that's ever been seen. And if a decision isn't made on the back of that, then I really have wasted my time. I've just made a pretty picture for people to look at. So informed business decision making is what it's all about. That decision could be to take no action. If we look at our dashboard with a bunch of key performance indicators and everything's green, so absolutely everything is on track, the decision to take no action is still a decision, and we want that based on information. We're going to say carry on as we are because we're doing great. We want it based on information. Alternatively, we're outside of parameters on something, we're below target. Why are we below target? What can we do? Where should we be focusing our action? So it's about informed decision making. How we get from there, it's several steps to the journey from data to an informed decision. The first part of it, looking at our data, well, lots of data sources that people use. Some of the most common, Excel. People keep data in Excel. It's sometimes we either rather people didn't or wish we hadn't gone down that route because it's got certain drawbacks. We might have our data in SQL Server. Well, I say SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server databases, Oracle, MySQL, MariaDB as your databases. Could be text files, comma separated values or text files. Often data that's been exported from a line of business application gets exported in the form of simple text files. So we use those. SharePoint online lists are quite popular these days, especially with people using Power Apps in the Microsoft 365 cloud to store data in. All of these and many, many more are straightforward data sources for Power BI to connect to. So we want to take those and turn them into meaningful information. So if I need to know which service has generated the most tickets on the help desk, nice pie chart that shows number of tickets broken down by service, and ta-da, at one glance, I know where we are with it. So we want to turn it into visualized information. How we get there? Well, the first step is extracting the data. So we connect to the data source. Browse to an Excel file, provide the server name and database name of a database, the URL of web address for SharePoint list, whatever it is, we connect to the data. At which point, once we're connected to a data source, Power BI does not care in the slightest where it came from. It treats all data equally. Once we've connected to a data source, data's data. So at that point, we look to transform the data. Frequently, things won't be quite as we want them to be. We might need to change names of things, a simple sort of thing, where field names. If you're connecting to a database, I can be fairly confidently guarantee that your field names won't have spaces in, that the average database administrator hates spaces in their column names. So we might want to just rename them to make them look tidy. We might want to manipulate data types. We may need to manipulate values. If we've got a table of purchase orders that's got a column of the net cost, column for tax, column for shipping, I might want to just add all those together to get a column for totals. Simple one like that. We might need something more sophisticated. If column A is this and column B is that, then column C is something else. So doing conditional sorts of stuff. Once we've done that sort of data manipulation to get the data how we want it to be, we then load the data into the Power BI report. So we connect to the data, do any transformations we need, and then we load it into the report. That gives us what's called a data model. So we have a data model. It's quite common for data models to contain multiple tables of data. Definitely if you're connecting to a relational database like Oracle or SQL Server, that sort of thing. Frequently enough, excuse me, had a bit of cold lately, just getting over it. Frequently, even with Excel and things like that, we have different tables of data. People tell me on courses, they say, oh yeah, we got all these VLOOKUP calculations that we do, or XLOOKUP calculations. And I say, well, you never have to do one of those again. We'll just create a relationship between them and it will do it all for you. And that's when I get some of the biggest smiles on the course. So we can create relationships between tables of data. We can do calculated columns. In the query, we can do at the transform stage in the query, we can do simple things, column A plus column B plus column C. With calculated columns in the data model, we can start being a lot more sophisticated. The data's been loaded and we can access the entire data set. We can aggregate our data. I mean, add things up. That's the easy aggregation, or find the average or the minimum or maximum. But again, we can be much more sophisticated. We can do rolling averages. We can do values for the last 90 days. We can do values for whatever period we're looking at, the same period the last year or the last month or the last 90. We can do these sorts of sophisticated aggregations. And these sorts of things we call measures, so we can calculate these sort of measures. And we get data hierarchies. It's a very common thing to have, for example, a product type and a subtype, and a category and a subcategory. Or if we look at geographic distribution, we might have country and then region and then county and then postcode, region, town. So we have hierarchies of data. This is all stuff we do with our data model to get it ready for work. And then we get into visualizing it. Whenever I put this on screen, I always feel a slight need to apologize for spelling visualize with a Z. Power BI is an American product, and everywhere within the Power BI application interfaces, visualize and visualization is always spelt for Z, so I did it on this one. Sometimes wish I hadn't. Anyway, visualizing data is simple visualizations, charts, pie charts, column charts, line charts, tables of data where we've just, nicely, neatly summarized table of data with department name and budget and excuse me, and total purchase orders so far, plus nice conditional formatting to show whether they're ahead or behind budget. Add to that then ways for the report users to filter and drill into the data. So we want to provide nice, easy, interactive, intuitive to understand ways for our report users to say, right, I can see that the HR department is over their budget on their purchase orders this month. I want to see what's going on. Click on the department name. Power BI takes me to additional information to show me what they've been spending money on. And navigation ways of, we can create multi-page reports. Page 1's an overview. Page 2 has got details of spending and costs and budgets and so on. Nice, easy ways to navigate between the two and interact with it. To, at the end of it, to have reports that are engaging, easy to use, intuitive, and that the report consumers will actually like using. And you might sometimes find it surprising quite how important it is to make reports engaging. I personally have created reports previously over the years, and because the report users don't like them, a year later they're saying, Matt, we need to have something that will tell us this, that, or the other. I say, I made that for you last year. And he said, oh yeah, we don't like that one. Can we have a different one? It's like, what? But it is so important to make sure that it is meeting their needs. So that's our journey. That's how we're going to get from A to B. Here we are. The components of Power BI that provides us with the means to do this. There are several components. We have got the Power BI desktop application. This is the application that we install on the data analysts and business analysts and report creators work computers that they use to do the connecting to data sources, manipulating data model, creating the visualizations. This is the built-in application. This creates Power BI reports, but we're not going to share the data by emailing copies of the Power BI reports to other people. That's not how Power BI works. What we use to share things is the Power BI service, which is an online service. We publish our reports to that service so that then the Power BI users can see the reports in a web interface. They use a browser to view the reports. This makes it really easy to grant people access things, really easy for people to find the reports, to access the reports, and it gives it a nice user-friendly interface. So we've got the Power BI service. It's where we publish the reports. There are mobile apps for Power BI. So both the Android and Apple app stores have got Power BI apps to display Power BI reports. Obviously, if we're going to be creating reports to be viewed on a mobile phone, we have to bear that in mind with the reports that we create. That a report to be viewed on desktop computer will be in landscape view and can have lots of things on one page. Mobile phone, you probably want it in portrait view with a lot less, but there's mobile apps for it, for getting data on the go. There is a feature, it's a subset of Microsoft SQL Server called the Power BI Report Server. It's a stripped down version of the Power BI service that you can use to publish your reports in-house, so everything stays within the corporate firewall. Used to be more popular quite a few years back, when a lot of organizations were quite new to using Microsoft 365 and had real worries about the data and confidentiality and things like that, and thinking, can we really publish our reports to this Microsoft service, this online service? And of course, the answer is yes, you can. Microsoft 365 is absolutely stacked full of data governance, compliance, etc. tools that the 365 admins are supposed to use to keep everything secure. But report server is there for people who want it. It is lacking an awful lot of features of the Power BI service. So it's not something, it's not an equal trade-off, but it's there, report server. There are also Power BI application programming interfaces that developers can use Visual Studio. If of all the visualizations that are available, the built-in visualizations like column charts and pie charts, marketplace visualizations that are available through Microsoft, if none of those meet your needs, you can make your own. You use it if you've got developers to do custom visuals and things. So you've got the APIs. The key parts to it, though, realistically, Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service. Desktop application to create the reports, Power BI Service to publish the reports. There's that bits. In terms of who uses what roles we've got, you've got data analysts. The people who are all over the data sources, the number crunching, create calculations, either in the query time and transforming data or in the data model to build up the data to allow us that we can then use to create reports from. So data analysts, people who love the number crunching. We've also got the report creators, taking the data set and then building that into visuals to make engaging and informative reports that meet the needs of the report users. There's quite a lot of people, smaller organizations for sure, where the data analyst and the report creator are going to be the same person. There's nothing wrong with that, nothing at all. I do find, and it certainly applies to me personally, that for most people, got a natural preference and a natural aptitude for one or the other. I like doing the numbers. There's a few things warm my heart more than a really elegant formula that does a complex and sophisticated job. I love that sort of stuff. When it comes to choosing the right color scheme for the report and making buttons change color when you mouse over them and stuff like that, yeah, I can do it, but it's not my funnest thing. I'd rather give it to someone else to do it. So we've put it separate. They're not necessarily separate roles. There's plenty of people who do both, and plenty of people who are more than happy with both. But anyone who's doing on one of my courses who spends one day going, I hate this bit, Matt, it's all number crunching. Can we do the visuals? And we go, yeah, we're coming to you. That's nothing unusual there, and vice versa. Number crunching people love that and not the visuals. So we've got data analysts, report creators, a role sometimes fulfilled by two people or one person. We've also got report consumers. So we've got the information workers, we've got managers, whoever, who are going to be viewing the reports. These are the people who are going to be making decisions based on the reports. I said the key output from Power BI is informed business decisions. The report consumers, the people who are going to be making those decisions. And therefore, these are the most important. This is the most important role in most respects. We don't have any training courses for report consumers. We do training on building them. But the report creators and analysts have got to understand the needs of the report consumers, because if these people's needs aren't met, we might as well have stayed in bed. There's no point in creating a report that doesn't do the job for them. So these are the decision makers. As well as the report consumers, we've got the Power BI administrators. These are people responsible for governance of the platform, for giving people access to what they need to be able to do, to allow report creators to publish the reports, to grant permissions on things, to allow or not allow various features of the Power BI. So we've got the Power BI administrators as well. Usually that's fulfilled by the Microsoft 365 tenancy administrator. So key roles. There we are. Analysts, report creators, got to do their job by understanding the needs of the report consumers, and the Power BI administrators, the ones who let us or don't let us grab the technologies, do what we need to do. Okay. A second, I just seem to have lost track of my slides. So let's pop out that for a second. So what does a Power BI report look like? Here's one I made earlier, Blue Peter style. So I created a report already. There we go. Actually, let's go with this is this is a report I've created previously. The sample data, using sample data that we use on our Power BI courses here that we run at Quanta, which is all based on visitors to a stately home I made up. And so what I'm looking at there is a report dashboard, giving me various bits of information about, what's going on with visitor numbers and how many tickets we've sold and things like that. And the idea of a dashboard is that we can see fairly easily, we want to see at a glance what's going on. So I've got what's called a key performance indicator over here on the right hand side, showing the number of people who visited this stately home last month. It's green because it's ahead of target. I can see a nice rising trend line axis in the background. That tells me everything's happy. So good sort of standards, we say look at that, say, well, yeah, targets are green. I can see from this chart next to it, I've lost my mouse pointer again. There it is. Got a chart next to it here that tells me I can see, there we are, look, that's excellent, that the number of groups, the running total of people visiting has surpassed the target line for that's what we got last year. So everything's looking rosy. Some detailed numbers on visitors for the current week and last week. This is what's called a dashboard. The idea of a dashboard is to be able to see all the information we need at a glance, just like the dashboard on your car. I don't want to be having to look at the dashboard on my car and having to think about what I'm looking at. I just need to glance at it, and as long as there aren't any lights on, I know everything's a-okay. If everything's not a-okay, if there is an issue, if my KPI is giving me concern, I click on it, and it takes me into the detail. So you can see on the right-hand side, I've got a nice navigation menu of multiple reports. I'm looking here, details of visitor numbers for the week, and my visuals interact with each other. Whoops. So visuals interact with each other. So if I select, annual tickets that were sold this week, it gives me a breakdown of what's going on. So we can see this is the idea of Power BI: create visuals, interact. There we go. And that's the basic Power BI visual interaction. You've got a Power BI report page, show you data broken down by various different metrics or various different dimensions, and we can see things interacting with each other. There's a similar one, but for the last 4 weeks instead. So visits on dry days, visits on wet days, etc. It gives us this ability. We see the dashboard shows us the overview. Everything's fine. No action needed. Maybe. We can have more details pages. The average Power BI details page would have a lot more information on it than this. I'm keeping things simple to make it easy to sort of see what's going on. What we can also do with Power BI is saying we want to provide people with nice, easy, user-friendly ways to filter into the data. So I'm showing some data here. Yeah, visitor numbers and broken down by whether they brought their kids with them. It does seem to be that we are more likely to get kids turn up when it's not raining. The important part of this one is we've included on here a nice little calendar thing. These are called slicers. Slicers are a special type of Power BI visual that is specifically intended for filtering. So I can then select individual years. If I just want to see a particular month, we can see a particular month. Yeah, so we can provide the users with nice, easy, user-friendly ways to navigate around the data, filter it to what they want to be able to see. There we are. Daily info. As an alternative to just giving them the report consumer a page and saying, there's a page, you do the filtering to show you what you want. We can instead, here we are, daily info, create a different sort of page here. So I've got a table of data that's showing me dates plus visitor numbers and the number of people and the amount of money that we took on any given day. It's all very useful. Got different sorts of slices at the top. So I can select, it's December this month. There we are, I've got December now. So I've got the current month with the figures up to yesterday. Yep. So provide this sort of feature for them. However, we can then take this up a step. So when the report user makes a selection, in this particular instance, I'm selecting a date. This might be a table of departments, as said earlier, departments with purchase orders and budgets, or it might be service tickets and systems and whatever it is. So I select the thing that I'm interested in. I've set it up here so Power BI tells me more about that sort of day. It's the 6th, it was a Wednesday, it's not a school holiday and the weather was dry. The weather for this place is every bit as made up as the stately home. Actually, it was dry yesterday, wasn't it? Anyway, it says click here to view the details. Click here to view the details, and it takes me into a totally new page with extra information, albeit based upon that day. So that's the 6th of December I clicked, and I've got my ticket sales. I've got the different types of people who showed up, how much money we took in. Oh, we didn't sell any annual tickets. That's one of those things we target. So we want people to buy annual tickets because then they come back loads of times. And we don't charge much for admission, but we really gouge people in the cafe and the shop. So we just want to get repeat visits. Got to sell more annual ones. There we are. And then we've got another button there to go back to my days page with that list and go back, select different department, whatever, click show details, start showing details. So which should basically try to showcase here various ways we can provide for the report consumers. A lot of people have had the experience in the past of, you get an Excel workbook or something with the data in it, you make a pivot table, and then you randomly click on things and all sorts of stuff happens, or you change the fields on your pivot table or your pivot charts. And it's really confusing and everything kind of, there's nothing guiding you through it. With Power BI, we have this ability to provide a nice overview information. Let's get a couple of months in here. Yeah, nice overview of the situation we've got. Look at this, go, oh, got lots of people visiting then. Wonder why. Oh yeah, it's Saturday in school holidays and it is a dry day. No wonder we got loads of people visiting. So we can provide a nice controlled way of getting into the information, and then have the user, they make their selection, and then they can see the details on things like that. So we do things in a very controlled way. Alternatively, we can just provide the slices, and you can have these slices, we can put dozens of them on any given page and give them, let people go nuts with it. And we've got these like interactive pages where people make selections and the visuals react across the page. Lots of ways to get Power BI to be interactive with the report consumers. So that's a sample. That's what we started from. How did we get here? Well, we got here using the Power BI desktop application. So I've already got it open. There we are. This is the Power BI desktop application for that report. So we've got these various bits to it. The data that we're using for this one is all held in a relational database in SQL Server. If I just click on the model view here, you can see we've got various tables of data tied together with relationships between the two. If I want to add more data to my report, here we go, get the right button, get data. The sort of data sources that Power BI can connect to, it's quite a long list. I'm not going to run through all of them because we've only got so much time for this webinar. You can just see from this scroll bar, these are all the sorts of data sources that Power BI can natively connect to. And you can mix and match. I can have some data coming from Excel, some from a SharePoint list, some from SQL Server, some from an online web service. Once Power BI's got the data, it doesn't care. So for example, an Excel workbook, if you want to connect to the data, all you have to do is browse to where the workbook is, Power BI data, wages, actually that's staff, oh no, that's CSV files, whoops, wages. So if I connect to a workbook, it's got multiple sheets in, so I just select a sheet, and that gets my data, and Power BI will connect to the data source and show me the data in this thing that it's called the query editor. It's a very simple little workbook, this particular one. And within this, we can then start transforming our data. Here we are. I've got name, first name. Let's split that column into split column, like limiter. So you can just do data manipulations. Now I've got a column first name and last name, splitting things up. I've got a date there. If I don't want that as a date, I could change it into text. You can basically do all sorts of manipulations of the data as it's loaded in, as it comes into Power BI. And all of these can be mashed up together to be manipulated, and an Excel data source. So here we go. That should add in something called 2018, I think. Yeah, 2018. My other tables are all from SQL Server, but there's my extra table there for my that's wages for the staff at Solihull. Yeah. So we can connect to all sorts of data sources, wide variety of data sources, manipulate the data, if necessary, amalgamate them together by putting two queries together, and merging them or whatever, and we get into our data model. The data model Power BI displays here. So that's the one I was just playing with. I've just imported that data. Other tables like this table of the visits of people who have visited Solihull. For each visit, they've recorded the number of adults, number of seniors, number of juniors, number of under fours, and so on. You can do calculations here. So I've got a calculation here for the number of people. You can see that formula there shows we're adding together the number of adults and the seniors and the juniors, just adding something together. You can do sophisticated calculations. So for each visit, we record we've got the particular person. Please don't ask about our GDPR compliance. It's hopeless. We've got all sorts of personal identifiable information. However, it's all made up, so it's okay. So for each visit, I've got a person ID. So if I want to know for each visit how many times that person has visited before, that could be quite tricksy to work out in many respects, but not for Power BI. There we are, I've got a formula there, which will very easily and does calculate for each visitor how many times they've been before. So we can do some fairly sophisticated sort of calculations in here. Not only that, we can do other sorts of calculations. Here we go. If I go back to my report here, total gate receipts. That's total payment. We can create calculations that we'll use on our report. So I have a calculation where we are. Number of groups. Here we are. This calculation is just calculating how many people came to visit last year. I've also got another one calculating a number of groups running totals. So it can this data model can produce some really sophisticated calculations. It doesn't just produce numbers, mind you. We can have text. So there's my 4 weeks, last 4 weeks. The page title here, visitors in the last 4 weeks, 10th November, 10th December. That's going to change depending on the date today. And that itself will be calculated. Where is it? 4 weeks page title. There we go. So our calculations can also be text-based things. We can even calculate colours. If I want my visuals to be different colours, depending on whether we're above target or below target, we can get a colour back and use that. So we can do all manner of stuff with the data model in terms of calculations to then produce our reports. Here we go. And then having done all this, we put our visuals on the report surface and then edit all of our interactions and choose to use various methods of filtering, slices, drill through, drill down, etc., etc., to get the information that we need for our report, for our excuse me, for our report users to do what they need to do. Once we've done all this, we publish the report. You can see there's a button there that says publish. Do you want to save that? I don't think I've made any changes. Hopefully I haven't. So we publish our reports and we publish it to what's called a workspace up in the Power BI service. And I'm going to show you that as soon as this is published. So yeah, do that thing. That publishes my report. We are. So up in the Power BI, oops, there it is. In the Power BI service, and this is part of Microsoft 365 on the Power BI application. There's workspaces. You have workspaces within the Power BI interface. The people who are going to be able to access your workspace will generally be whoever is working on the report. So this is, we don't share the workspace with our report users. It's the last thing we want to do. We create our report. And there's a copy of my reports that I've published. So it's all report. And you can see that's all my usual stuff. Yeah. What we can also do is create a dashboard. You can create multiple dashboards. Oops. There's the dashboard that we saw earlier. Turn up. The dashboards in the Power BI service, there's nothing magic about them. They don't make a perfect dashboard just by clicking make me a dashboard. What a dashboard is a place where you can pin visuals from other report pages. So I've taken report elements from other pages, I just pin them here and then move them about. You can drag things around and put them where you want to and resize them and make them look tidy and pretty, etc. But to make a good dashboard, if you want a KPI on your dashboard, then you're going to make a KPI visual on your report. So they're not a magic bullet solution to make a good dashboard. However, they are a page where you pin visuals from other reports. So in other words, to get these visuals on here, let's go back to the source report. You come here to select one of these visuals and use the pin functionality to pin that to another report. Excuse me. Okay. Once we've got that done, we've created a dashboard as well. At that point, we publish the app. So this, at the moment, I'm looking at this as part of the Power BI service. I've got the Power BI menu down the side here with all these bits and pieces. The end users do not need this sort of thing. So we publish an app. Here we are. We choose which reports we want to be in there. There's this, says update app, publish the app, and that makes it available to report consumers. I've got this report here that I was showing you earlier. This is a different user account I'm logged in as, who has no write access at all. So this user, they can't change the report, they can only view it. They can't save it. They can't do anything else with it at all. However, what they can do, amongst other things, is they can subscribe to it. So one of this was a report sharing. How do people know how to see our reports and things like that? Well, one thing is to subscribe to a report. So I can choose this. And basically what Power BI will do is send me an email. I can say, right, 8:30 every morning, send me an email, and it will send me a picture of what this dashboard looks like at 8 o'clock every morning. I can look at that and go, hey, everything's green. I don't need to do anything. Or I look at it and say, oops, something's red. I click on that in my email. That's a link. It takes me to my report. So we can create subscriptions. Some visualizations like KPIs, discard that. We've got this one here, the KPI visual. I might have to scroll that. A KPI's got a target on it, so you can create alerts, manage alerts. So if it goes above or drops below the target, it will send me an email at that point that it happens. We can embed visuals into SharePoint pages. There's a Power BI visualization web part for Power BI, so we can embed visuals into. So all these provide ways our end users, when it comes time to look at the report, they don't have to go, right, off I go to app.powerbi.com and find the app and do that. We just give them links to it, make it easy. Excuse me. All of which should be enabling that decision making that we're talking about. Right. So lots going on here. We've got report creates data analysts connecting to data, merging and amalgamating of doing data. We've got some number crunching, formulas, all sorts of things going on the data model. We've got report creators making something engaging and interactive and easy to use for report consumers. We've got report consumers coming to look at these things. They're viewing it, or they're getting email for subscriptions, they're receiving alerts, or they've got embedded visuals in SharePoint site for the intranet and things. It's a question mark over how much this costs, or what the licensing model is anyway. So let's just get that back. Okay, how Power BI is licensed from Microsoft. There's two ways you can do this. One is a standard per user license. So whoever's going to be using Power BI, you pay for a license for each one of those people. There is a free version of Power BI that anyone can have and don't cost any money at all. Unfortunately, it's a bit limited in who you can share it with. If you want to share your reports within the organization, you need a pro or a premium license. If you want to view a shared report, you also need a pro or a premium license. So per user licensing, the user sharing the report needs a license, the user viewing a report needs a license. Yeah, sometimes people think that's like, oh, that's harsh. People viewing it aren't doing anything. The capability is still being used. So the report creator needs one, the report user needs one. And given at the cost level, we're looking at when was it last time? So it just something about £9.50 per user per license. If you've got more than a couple of hundred users, it is cheaper to go for the instead of per user license to go for what they call capacity licensing. That is where for the entire organization, our entire tenancy, like quanta.co.uk is a tenancy with Microsoft 365, we get a license that covers everybody in the organization. And the cost of those depends on what capacity you buy. The capacity is basically based on how much CPU and how much RAM will be getting used. That governs how big data sets you're going to use and things like that. Very, very large data models, you'll be looking at quite expensive costs in the tens of thousands of pounds per month. Smaller capacity licenses, less. You don't need any additional licenses for your report users. You just need to get pro licenses for your report creators. So these sort of two different licensing models. Which one works for you is all going to depend very much on what so the size of organization, number of people who'll be creating reports, number of people who can be viewing reports. It's very rare that I've ever encountered any organization where everybody looks at it and goes, oh my God, that's really expensive. We're paying £3,000 a month for some pretty reports. And you say, okay, what you want to do with your reports is X. This is going to save how many hours of time? There was a mid-sized organization 5 years ago, early days of Power BI, that I went to deliver some training for, having a chat over lunch, and these three of the people on the course, they had this plan to do to allow managers to have a self-service portal for managing absenteeism. I said, how much time do you reckon it will save these managers per month? They were like, hour, maybe 2 hours. So, okay. How many of them are there? 200. It's like, so we're looking at saving somewhere between say an average of 300 manager hours per month. Well, unless you're paying these people minimum wage, that pays for the license on its own and everything else is free. So when we look at licensing costs, I think it's better to focus on value for money rather than numbers. Right, which brings us on to, because time's ticking on, Q&A time. How are we doing for Q's and A's then, Stuart?
We've had some really good questions and answers coming in. Some of them are around licensing. So I think you covered a lot of it in licensing, but Rob Morris would like to know, could you explain the key differences between pro and premium per user?
Oh, right. It's a tricksy one. I've got to remind myself. Key pro licensing versus premium license on the per user one. Have we got? I was just going to say, did we put in a link to that one? Bear with me a second.
What we can do is, if you want to find the link, I can always put an answer to that in the chat in response to the question after the chat.
I do have a list in my links on this stuff. Let's just try and see that there. Hang on. Right, there we are. Let's just get that on screen. So the Power BI Premium, we've got, you can use these things called data flows and data tenants. So this is where usually data flows we're talking about, you've got data stored in things like Microsoft Azure Data Lake and things like that. And we're putting information data in from there rather than from on-premise SQL Server and things like that. We've also got, this is quite a key one. There we are. The amount of memory that is in your data model, that with a pro license, you got 1 gig. With the premium license, it's 100. So you can have much, much, much bigger data sets. Just got pop-ups on in the lobby. The other thing is the refresh one. If you can, for the when you're setting up data refresh for your reports and so on, a pro license, you can do 8 refreshes per day. So in other words, reports that are published to Power BI service, they may be using data that's on your SQL server inside your LAN, or Excel files inside your own LAN, well, or on SharePoint Online or wherever, and they can reread that and they can refresh with a Pro license up to 8 times a day, with a premium license up to 48 times a day. Most people setting it up for 8 times a day make it once an hour, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12, etc. With 48 a day, you can do every 15 minutes or something like that. And obviously not bother updating it overnight when no one's looking at it. So the size of data sets and size number of refreshes is probably the key difference between the two. In terms of cost, oh gosh, there we are. So there we are. Power BI Pro 820 per month, double that for premium. So if you need those big data sets, then you need those big data sets. And
you got a happy
okay.
customer there. Rob Morris says, thanks. Yep, that answers my question.
Sweet.
Let's move on to Emma Wheeler's question. And Emma's was, do you think a more advanced level of Excel knowledge is needed to create Power BI reports? We're using open API connection to another system, and I understand in theory, but I'm finding some things more complex, and I'm not always understanding what the error is.
Oh, right. If you've got, may say, advanced Excel knowledge, what can be helpful knowing in Excel are the sorts of formulas you can do with Excel, that the Power BI data model formulas and functions, a lot of them are the same as Excel ones. So functions like if or switch and stuff like that, they work exactly the same in Power BI data model as Excel. So the formulas, the data analysis expressions that you get in Power BI don't have analogs in Excel. That Power BI's got other ones, but some good experience of Excel is certainly helpful when working with a data model. It's not a requirement, but it's definitely helpful. What was the rest of that question?
The rest of that question was, just bear with me 1 second, just answering someone else's question in the Q&A.
Oh, right, you're in there.
Which was, I've lost the questions. Why isn't it?
Oh, no.
Okay, no, I've got it now. Just said she's finding some things more complex and not always understanding what the error is. We did, Robbie Bell did feedback that in their personal experience, it had been, yes, better to have Excel knowledge, and that it becomes easier the more Excel knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
So there have been some good feedback and some conversation in the Q&A from other attendees, which has been really helpful.
I would definitely say that and if anyone's coming on like a data analytics course with me, that people who have had some Excel experience doing formulas find it easier because it's not quite such a culture shock. People do sometimes get confused. There's two principal types of calculations you do in the Power BI data model, which is measures and calculated columns and measures, and things, because they're different results. That a formula that works perfectly well for a column won't work for a measure, and vice versa. And sometimes people get an error, and you've got a formula that's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what it's supposed to be, but you've created a measure and therefore it's erroring and things like that. You'd sometimes get that, which is a bit difficult to really get that in time available. I can't explain it any better than I have there, I think.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Matt. We do have a few more questions. I am conscious of time, so if there are any questions that we don't get round to in this session, I'll make sure that I feed back to Matt and that they do get answered after in the question and answer section. So if there is anything that remains unanswered, you will be able to view them after. Time for a few more. I think this is a quick one from Robbie Bell. On a dashboard, can you set a rule so that it automatically filters date? For example, can you do previous week's performance?
Oh, absolutely. The one we've got here is doing exactly that. This chart that I'm pointing to, whoops, I clicked on it. This chart here is doing the current week, and that will update tomorrow. The figures will include the wet Thursday figures, and absolutely you can do the filter to this week, last week, this year, whatever. You can do basically it's called what we call a relative date filter, and you can absolutely do that. I think absolutely everything on that dashboard is being filtered to a relative date, actually. Yeah, they actually are. All of those are using relative date filters. So yes, is the answer to that one.
Quick question from Veneziana Mandrelli. I hope I pronounced your name right. It is a lovely name. Can we extract data from Power BI to Microsoft Project?
Oh, right. That's a good question. I'm going to go with the initial reaction is, I don't know. We can certainly export it to PowerPoint and things like that. I'm not sure what the route to project would be. Might have to look that one up and come back to that one. So no, don't know. That's one of those where I think the gap in my knowledge is regarding project, because I do very little with Microsoft Project. Next question.
Time for a couple more. Do you ever upload the document to OneDrive so it automatically publishes changes? And are there any cons with this approach?
So we're talking about uploading the Power BI desktop file to OneDrive. It is one that a lot of people like doing, because we want to if we're collaborating on our reports, that we don't all want to have different copies of the Power BI desktop report. So using OneDrive is definitely a plus when it comes to a way for the people who are creating the reports to collaborate on creating the reports. But you don't want to be doing that for sharing it with the report users. The report users definitely want to be looking at a published app in their web browser, like I've got there, and we don't want the report users looking at Power BI desktop, the application here. Partly because there's loads of buttons and things like that, that they will just confuse them. They don't need all this functionality, and also because they can make changes to it. We want to have, we want to have the report user working with a read-only environment. So in Power BI desktop here, I can see the data. Yeah. So click on visits. I can see all the underlying data. Whereas in my report, the published report in the app, they can only see the visuals that I've given them. So again, for lots of reasons, including potentially confidentiality and things like that, we want them viewing a published app. Okay.
Fantastic. Two more questions very quickly, and then any that aren't answered by that point, we'll come back to you after the session. Catherine Ortlep, hello. If you were using Power BI to surface data quality issues, could a user update the data and write back to the SQL database table?
As long as I've understood, so basically what we're doing is saying we can see in Power BI report that there's a data quality issue, that someone spelt a name wrong, or all the many data quality things that come up. Could we find some way so that I can edit the data using Power BI? That's what I'm understanding I'm being asked. And the answer is no. It's very much a one-way trip, that the data, we connect to the data source and we draw the data in. We can then do lots and lots of manipulation. And I've seen plenty of queries where the main thing that's going on there is straightening out data quality issues. Yeah. To do that, but it doesn't write back. The trip is strictly one way. Power BI pulls the data, we manipulate it, and that's in Power BI. We've got no write access to the data sources. So the answer is no.
Okay, time for one final question. This comes from Dean. If the dashboard is compiled of snippets from the rest of the report, does adding filters to the report pages affect what is shown on the dashboard, or is the dashboard locked so it isn't affected by slices and filters elsewhere?
Right. The dashboard will show the default settings for it. When I'm looking at a report, I'm seeing this as it is. If I then go into the report and apply slices and go back to the dashboard, no, they won't take effect. the dashboard version of it. So if I pinned this chart here, the visitor numbers chart, to a dashboard, that is done as the default settings.
Perfect. Okay, well, I think we'll end the Q&A there for now. But as I say, those of you who haven't had your questions answered, we will go through them after, and we'll respond to anything that we've missed. So I think there's just one final slide from us, and then I think we're good to go.
Absolutely. If we may, just to wrap up. Here we go. So Q&A, queued and aid. So last bit. Going forward, hopefully, I've given you a few things to think about with Power BI, and crucially, yeah, the aim is to say this is what Power BI can do for you as a business. This is why it's worth knowing how to do. How we can help is we've got training courses. So we've got a range of Power BI training courses that we do. The two key ones, we've got fundamentals of data and analytics using Power BI, which is 3 days with very much focus on the number crunching, connecting to data, manipulating data, doing the data model and things like that. We've also got creating reports and dashboards, which again is 3 days with very much a focus on the visual side, creating reports, publishing reports to the Power BI service, creating dashboards, publishing the app, all that side of things, which is a 3-day course as well. There is a bit of overlap between those two courses. So if you do come on one and then come on the other, you will have a little bit of time when you're thinking, we did this on the other course. Well, of course, there is some overlap between the two. And that also does mean that we can offer a 5-day combined course that does both. Frequently that's done as a tailored course for individual customers, and frequently I end up visiting their site and teaching them there. So we've got that as a combined thing. And then as the other courses are there's 3-day Power BI desktop course, which is purely focused on the desktop app. So it doesn't include anything about the Power BI service whatsoever, and is a kind of, so a shallower dive in right across the whole thing about the data analysis part and the creating reports part. No dashboards because there's no service involved, but that's just focused purely on the Power BI dashboard app. For the data analytics and the creating reports courses, those you can attend in any order. One is not a prerequisite to the other. It's most people's decision making on which one they come on first is which one was available on schedule first, or alternative, which one you feel like doing first. But there's no hierarchy between the two. It's just one's very number crunchy, one's very visually. Is there anything else I should have said about the courses, Stuart?
Just to add that in the chat, you have to excuse me. We've got the managing director on a call in the same room now, who's just decided to join the chat. I have put the link to all of the courses, so you can find out more information about them in the chat at 11:55 a.m. So if you do want to have a look, by all means do. But also our contact details are across the bottom. If you get in touch, I'm sure Matt will be happy to discuss with you further, or we can link you up and see what we can do for you there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. In that case, then let's wrap this up. I hope you found this really useful. I've certainly enjoyed it. The feedback's been great. Thank you all for attending. It's been wonderful, and hopefully we'll see you again for something soon. And thank you to Matt.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Excellent.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Hope you have a great
Bye-bye.
day. Bye-bye.
Do we sit here till everyone leaves then, Stuart, or can I just
I think that's the polite thing to do. Do what they do in the news and just kind of like shuffle some papers like this.
It's nice, a lot of nice comments there in the chat, which is lovely. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
It's nice to get good feedback. Well, just any feedback. Otherwise, it feels like talking to a wall. All right, actually, that's what I have been doing. We're down to 12 people now, aren't we?
Okay, then I'm going to start looking through those some questions and get some answers to people. Right, bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye all.